Hey everybody, and welcome to Complete Dentures 1. If you're participating in this course, it's a good chance that you were enrolled in the Restorative Dentistry department at New York City College of Technology. This is the first time that this course will be available fully online and accessible through your Blackboard accounts. Before we get into the actual dentistry, first let's cover some policies and some things you should know about the course and the department. First, let's talk about our grading policy. This course is made up of a lecture portion and a laboratory portion. The lecture is worth 40% of your grade, while the laboratory is worth 60%. Since this is the didactic portion, let's talk about lecture. Even though the lecture is only worth 40% of your grade, you must still earn a minimum of 70% in the lecture section in order to pass the course in its entirety. If you do not, then you must repeat the course, both sections, not just lecture and not just lab. Once again, you must earn a minimum of 70% in the lecture section and the laboratory section in order to pass the course in its entirety. If not, the course must be repeated. Also, there is no extra credit projects in this course or assignments. We are obviously concerned with our safety within the laboratory and the classes. So rules for the lab class in the workplace are regulated by OSHA, which stands for Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Below are some links where you can access these sites. Safety rules and regulations. When it comes to the laboratory, we need to practice safety procedures. We are dealing with impressions and removable appliances that have been in patients' mouths, so safety is definitely a priority. Be mindful of the safety equipment. If there's an accident, please inform the instructor. Some rules and regulations to live by when in the laboratory. There should be no food and no drinks. You should always be wearing a lab coat and goggles while in the laboratory. And wear your face mask when needed. And as of now, with COVID-19, this means always. You will not be allowed in the labs without wearing a face mask. In the laboratories, there are SDS Binders in each lab. MSDS is an acronym that stands for Material Safety Data Sheets. So if there is a chemical or material you are working with, and somehow it ends up ingested or possibly maybe in your eye, if you needed to know how to address the situation, the material safety data sheets will be able to point you in the right direction. Please ask your laboratory instructors where these material safety data sheets can be located. Now, to begin, what is a complete denture? A complete denture is a type of removable prosthesis designed to replace all of the natural teeth in an arch. In this situation, a dental laboratory technician and a dentist act as a team to fabricate a complete denture. Both our priorities are to help the patient be satisfied with their prosthesis. We need to have the 3 F's. We want it to have fit, the proper form, and be able to function. So with that said, why dentures? You know that as we talk about dental technology, there are many specialties within dental technology. There are complete dentures, removable partial dentures, ceramics, orthodontics, fixed prosthodontics, and the newest one, which is the most interesting to most, is implants. And with implants, obviously the use of CAD/CAM technology. However, CAD/CAM is not yet a specialty for dental technicians. But why would we look at dentures? Well, let's take a previous look at what the market looked like more recently. So a few years ago, life expectancy was said to be 79.5 years old by this year, 2020. 20.5% of adults over 65 have already lost all of their teeth as of today. 39.9 million people will be fully edentulous by this year, 2020. And the denture market value back in around 2014-15 was about $2.6 billion, with a projected growth to be at 3.6 billion by 2019, which was last year. Now, if we look at our more recent statistics, we see that there are an estimated 23 million completely edentulous people in the United States. We use the term edentulous to describe patients with no teeth. So if they are completely edentulous, they have no teeth on their maxillary arch or their mandibular, their lower arch. And 12 million that are fully edentulous in at least one arch, meaning that either in their maxillary, their upper arch, or their lower arch, they are completely missing teeth. There are about 9 million dentures made per year on average in the United States. With this said, with only 9 million dentures being made a year and countless millions more in need, we are clearly not meeting the demand of the people who need this type of prosthetic work. The U.S. denture market has grown from 2.6 billion to 3.6 billion, as it was projected. And the number of people over the age of 65 will double to more than 80 million over the next 2 decades. Nearly half of Americans ages 65 and older have lost 6 or more teeth, and 20% have lost all their teeth. With this type of growth, we can clearly see that there's going to be more and more demand for a prosthetic that restores the fully edentulous patient. But with this demand, how do we supply? Dental technology has been on a downward trend. Schools close very commonly within the industry. This is the first school, the original school, at New York City College of Technology, and we're lucky enough to still be open. So how do we begin to meet the demand, and how do we do it in a way that we produce quality restorations? Well, digital technology definitely has played a role in that, but we also need to know how to create these prosthetics by hand in order then to be very efficient at creating these prosthetics digitally through CAD/CAM technologies. So let's get into what it is that a denture does besides just act as false teeth. So a question here is that, does this patient need a facelift? We can see from a lateral perspective that it almost appears that the lower jaw is protruding forward, where this patient has what some people would call a bulldog bite, right? A lack of support on the upper lip gives this illusion. And because of that, when the mouth collapses, the skin wrinkles around the lips, making an aged appearance. So once again, the question was, does this patient need a facelift, or does this patient simply need a complete removable denture? The flange of the denture actually acts as lip support for this patient, which then fills the upper lip support and brings the lower jaw into a proper relationship. And it almost fills the face. The wrinkles have dissipated throughout the upper lip area. And even from a lateral perspective, you can clearly see the difference of what simply wearing a complete denture can do to someone's facial aesthetics. Now, what is it that most people think about when they think about dentures? I think the thought is usually grandma or grandpa taking their teeth out at night and throwing their dentures into a cup of water, right? So the question is this what a denture looks like? Is this what a denture should look like? I believe that mainstream media in Hollywood really do make us believe that a denture is what some colleagues and I call pink smoothies, right? Very smooth, shiny surfaces with plastic teeth. But the truth is that, is this it? Is this all that we have to offer in today's technology, with what we have to offer as human beings and artists in combination with technology? Is this the best that we can do, I guess, is the real question. And hopefully throughout this semester in this Dentures 1 course, I can help you answer that and come up with the kind of work that you would be proud of doing. But the journey is still the same. The journey is about the patient, and in order to understand that journey, we have to know the steps involved and the roles that the people play in order to get patients to where they want to be from an oral health perspective. So, how does it all begin? The answer to that is that it starts with impressions. The picture on the right is a alginate impression, or a preliminary impression, I should say. It's taken with a stock tray. All that means is that just as you would buy maybe a undershirt at a Target or Walmart, standard sizes, small, medium, large, they make dental trays for patients to fit them small, medium, large. But just as a fingerprint, people's mouths are very particular and shaped very nicely. So the difference, I guess, would be between, for us guys, a suit bought off of a rack and then a suit that is tailored by a tailor. So obviously a stock tray would not fit as well as a custom tray. But the stage of events happens that initially when a patient goes in, a patient would see a clinician, they'd get an oral evaluation and a health screening, and then preliminary impressions would be taken with a stock tray. With that stock tray, models are poured, and then a dental technician would fabricate something called a custom tray. Now, there are very much particulars in between those stages, and we'll cover them throughout the semester, but I just want to give you guys a brief overview of what these steps would look like. So on the right was initial impression taken by a clinician. It then gets sent to a dental lab. A dental lab pours these models into stone, which you see here. And then on models, we make something called a custom tray, where the clinician can take a better impression, which is pictured here on the left. Once that custom tray impression is received from the laboratory, we can then pour new models, and these final models are called our working models. On these models, a dental technician can create an appliance called a occlusion rim. These rims are made with something called base plate wax, and they are used to establish an acronym that we use, VDO, occlusal vertical dimension, which is basically the space in which teeth were occupied. So these occlusal rims are made and sent back to the office. The clinician can then try these rims in, and since they are in wax, they are completely malleable and changeable chairside. So a dentist or clinician can now adjust these occlusion rims to fit customly to the patient's mouth. Once they have found the proper positioning for the patient with proper lip support and other factors, it can then be sent back to the laboratory. Once it comes back to the laboratory, we then mount the case on what we call an articulator. Once again, these particulars and terms will be covered throughout the semester. An articulator is nothing more than a tool that simulates the opening and closing of the human jaw. Once we get this onto an articulator, we can then open and close it, simulating those paths that occur in the patient's mouth. And we can finish setting our teeth and perform a aesthetic wax-up, which replicates gingival anatomy. So once again, to ask, is this it? Were those dentures the way that dentures are supposed to be made? I like to ask the question of, if you lost a ear or part of your nose, and what was replaced was a dull or really shiny piece of plastic, would the person who have made that prosthetic done their job? I think not. And I think sometimes in dental technology we lose sight that a denture is a oral prosthetic. Therefore, the prosthetic needs to simulate nature as close as possible. So by putting in the extra detail and creating a piece of artwork, we are not only doing a service for the patient, but we're also putting pride in our work, that we can say that the patient can leave happy knowing that the prosthetic that they're walking around with looks natural. Once the wax try-in is complete and the teeth are set and the wax characterization is complete, the denture can get tried into the patient's mouth. This is a great part for the patient to see what their teeth could look like. Changes can be made during this appointment visit. And for this semester, this is all we will be able to reach. We will be doing all the steps we just discussed when it came to fabricating custom trays, occlusion rims, articulation, and setting of teeth and waxing. And then as a continuation to the course, next semester, Dentures 2, we pick up at this point, where we then take these wax trial dentures that we created and we will fabricate them and transition them into final finished acrylic dentures. And these dentures will then be finished and inserted into the patient's mouth. So that is the basis of complete denture protocols and procedures. I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview so you would know what to look forward to in the course. But I would also like to say that as a graduate of this program, these 2 years were a big part of my life. And I think that getting to know one another and being able to enjoy yourself is also part of the journey. And since this course always takes place in the fall, I always like to share this with you guys, that, enjoy the time and don't forget to have fun. What I did for many Halloweens when I was younger was create customized oral props like vampire fangs and things like that for my friends, and we go out to Halloween parties, and there's a full mouth Halloween werewolf fangs that I created for myself for Halloween as well. So there is a fun side to this, there is an artistic side to this, and I hope that you guys get to really enjoy yourselves, and I hope that I can show you that this doesn't have to be a career, right? You don't have to work a day in your life if you love what you do. And I believe that I found my passion through this career path, and I hope that you do too. So with that said, for this week's module, there are some assignments. We're keeping it light. You do have a discussion board, which is basically just an introduction. I wrote a few words about myself and introduced myself to everyone. So please don't forget to introduce yourself to your classmates, and don't forget to reply to at least 2 of your peers. As I say in the discussion board, friends that I created in this program, some of them actually led to career paths for me, and some ended up being my friends to this day, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So please participate in the discussion board. Your participation is graded. And then 2, you want to review the edentulous anatomical landmarks in the Air Force Manual. Page 199 is where they start. We'll talk about that in a second. And number 3 and 4, I do have the ability of creating some clinical and laboratory instructional videos. So they will be accessible on your Blackboard as well. There should be links in your module for you to watch those videos to get a better understanding of every visit and laboratory procedure that is involved within this semester. Okay, so for the clinical video, we have our preliminary visit with our patient, and then we have our pouring of alginates or preliminary impressions on the laboratory instructional video portion. And lastly, I know a quiz is the last thing you want to hear on your first lecture day, but there will be a quiz coming up. You have a course schedule and syllabus in your Blackboard that is accessible underneath the tab of course documents, and you can see when you will have your quiz. Your quiz will be available all day for a single day, and you will have to take it underneath a certain time frame, and you will only be able to take it once. But for that quiz, there will be a section of fill in the blank for these edentulous anatomical landmarks, so you will need to be able to locate them and spell them correctly. So with that said, I appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoyed your first lecture, and I look forward to working with all of you. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me. All my information is on the syllabus. You should all have my email through Blackboard. And once again, thank you for your time, and we'll talk soon. Have a great day, guys.